All right, hey, what's up, guys? Coach Mac, Play Fast Football. All right, today I'm going to do a little bit of video, a little quick video, on coaching players and scout players. How to coach both sides, at the same time, which is very important, especially when you have a little bit of extra time on your hands. Make sure you check out some of our sponsors. GameStrat sideline replay system that we use. Make sure you check out GameStrat. JustPlayFB is the digital software company I use to diagram plays if I'm speaking at clinics or webinars or doing a playbook for our team. HighandTight, which is a training aid for ball security that has an auditory feedback, so when you're holding the ball correctly, you hear a beep. If you're not holding the ball correctly with points of pressure, you do not hear a beep, so you get instant feedback. Difference USA, the ultimate striking machine. We have one in our weight room. During the year, we use it. We leave it in our weight room, but we use it a lot in the off season. And during this pandemic time, it's a good thing to use because you don't need a partner. You just have the striking machine, and all you got to do is clean the pad. All right, DC1 is an in-game app that allows us to make critical in-game adjustments based on live in-game data. Story of the season gives your team and your parents a memory of the entire season. They do weekly stories, write-ups, pictures, interviews, game clips from the game, and then at the end of the season you have a complete memory of that season. So during a time like this, very important, when this season is going to be one that nobody will ever forget. And then Baker Sporting Goods is the team outfitting store that I use, team store that I use locally here. They provide us with our players' gear, so like spirit packs, stuff like that. They also provide our uniforms that we wear, and then my coaches' items and apparel that we wear sideline and in practice. So check out Baker Sporting Goods. And then Dome Headwear is the hat company that I use for Play Fast Football and the current school that I'm at. They have custom online hat builders that you can generate your own hat, make it custom, do it how you want to do it. So make sure you are checking out Dome hats at www.domeheadwear.co. So yesterday I got a chance, based on our coaching staff, I was missing a guy. I got a chance to go down and do JV D-line yesterday, so I had to be down with the JV. Hopefully if you're at a school where you can coach JV and varsity, I think it's very, very beneficial, for a lot of reasons. Number one, you're coaching your players at your position 4 years through. When they get to varsity, hopefully they know what they're doing and how you want them to do it because you coached them. Number two, it gives you a chance to understand what kids know, what they don't know, what you need to repeat, what you need to spend more time on. And number three, it gets you a chance, or gives you a chance to, very important part of what you're doing is teaching kids how to be in drills as scout players. So as a coach, what you've got to eventually learn is you're not only coaching players, but you also have to be able to coach scout players, because when you do certain drills, you want to get as many reps as possible in that drill. The only way you can get those reps is you need scout players to understand the drill that you're doing. What it also does is it helps you while you're coaching players, while you're getting the scout team to work, which is a very overlooked part of practice. And a lot of times people think, if I tell a coach to go run the scout team, they think it's either a demotion or it's a step down. No, it's not. It's actually one of the most important parts of the deal, and you need all your coaches to understand it. So when you're doing a drill, especially at the JV level, why are we doing that drill? Well, obviously it's something that we need to do to get better at a certain component of the game. The other reason we're doing a drill is because if it's a drill we use on varsity, by the time they get to varsity, we want that 15 minutes to be so efficient that we want the players to be able to do and understand that drill from a playing standpoint and a scout standpoint, because we don't want to waste time. Now is one of the toughest times to do things because we've been in a summer deal where we've had to work on skills and fundamentals and work on installs. We don't have our first official practice till Monday. We've had different phases in the summer where we've been incrementally allowed to increase what we're doing. So we got to a phase where we were allowed to use bags. When you're using bags and drill, teaching kids how to do the drill while using bags is a big part of what you're doing, because everybody's going to have a time throughout the off-season, summer, camp, where you can't have contact on another human being. You have to use a bag, and you have to get the looks that you want in certain drills while people are holding a bag. So why not very early on teach kids how to be in those drills? And that's what it means to coach players and scout players. So we do a very simple run fit drill with our 3-3 stack stuff. All right, we do it a lot with those guys, and if we get good at it, we can knock it down to a 10-minute period. We usually start in 15 or 20-minute periods where the 6 guys in the box, the 3 D linemen and the 3 linebackers, are working on block recognition, So this gives us a chance to talk more about block recognition. What does that mean? Block recognition means the block that you are seeing by the key that you are reading. You are recognizing a block from a player that you are reading. That is block recognition. We tell every one of our kids, starting at an early age, everybody on our team better be really good at block recognition because it doesn't take talent. If you've been given and blessed the ability to see and your vision is not impaired, we can all look at something and recognize what type of block that is. What we do after that is where talent separates, size separates, speed, strength, that separates afterwards. But block recognition is something that everybody, at least in our program, we feel that everybody needs to be able to understand, and everybody needs to know not only what it is, who are you looking at, and then tell me, all right, what happened from the key that you were looking at. Okay, so we get to reiterate block recognition. Then we start to work on the actual run fit. Okay, so within the actual run fit, it's where do you now belong based on the block that you recognize. So based on your key and what your key did, where do you belong based on that block recognition? So we get a chance to work on block recognition, then we get a chance to work on run fits, and then once we get good in the drill, we might get a chance to work on block destruction. I'm not a big fan of block destruction when working against bags in drills. I try to slow this down to where we're just looking at the run fits of it because the bags move all over the place. And again, coaching scout players, they don't really understand how to use the bag correctly to give the best look possible. So block destruction for us is done more on sleds early on. It's done more on sleds and one-man and either two-man or five-man sleds, working on separating the left sled, getting your helmet in your gap, all right, and then maybe you get rid of, pull rip, pull swim, whatever you do to get off because the ball went that way. Maybe you strike the sled, you get your head in your gap, but the ball went away from your gap and it declared itself, so now you can, all right, disengage or destruct the block to the other side. We do a lot of that work on individual sleds or in individual periods, not in these bag periods. These bag periods are strictly for block recognition and run fits. So not only do we have to teach these kids, every rep I'm trying to talk to these kids, what block rec did you get? What block rec who are you reading? What block rec did you get? I'm talking to these linebackers and I want my position coaches to talk to them. Who'd you read? What was your block rec? Where'd you go? So we're talking to these guys if it's a defensive period. So let's just say we're working in a defensive setting and we're talking to those players. So we know we're talking to those players, we know it's a defensive drill. But what's going on with these 6 guys is just as important. One, if we're working on block rec, they've got to give me the proper block rec for the drill to be correct. They've got to understand what the steps are, what that block looks like, where to hold the pad to give me the proper look that I need. So now I've got to teach these kids over here. So we're in a defensive period. So the focus is defense. But I need to be good at teaching this part over here so that the drill is worth its weight and time in what we're doing. So I got to be good at teaching the scout players. So now we work very simply in this run fit. We work very simply zone schemes, power counter schemes, which would be gap schemes, and then some ISO stuff off the zone because those things are going to affect our run fits a little bit differently. We get to add in maybe a potential read component to that place. We can talk about option football. So we start with those 4 very basic schemes. So defensively, we need these kids to understand how to run fit off of block recognition of those 4 schemes. It's a defensive period. That's what the drill's for. But as you evolve further as a coach, you understand that the drill is also about those players. The drill is also about those players because if we don't get the right looks from those players in adequate time, we're going to waste not only the time of the rep, but in 15 minutes we'll go 5 reps instead of getting 18 reps in 15 minutes or something along those lines because there's no efficiency in the drill. So the sooner you can teach these kids, and that's why it's awesome if you get a chance to be a JV coach and a varsity coach, or if you get a chance to work with your JV team, or even if you got a chance to work with a youth group or a middle school junior high team, or if you get a chance to work with those groups, when they get to you, they should be able to do things in a more efficient manner so your periods, all right, are not wasting any time. So how we teach these kids is just as important as how we teach those kids. Now, sometimes when you're doing a drill like that, if you tell one of your coaches to do the scout team, they think that's a demotion or they think that's a put down. No, it's not. It's actually just as important as all the other parts. So yesterday, and I almost always do this if I'm involved in a drill, if I'm coaching a position, I take the scout team. I don't put it on another coach. 2 reasons. One, I feel like I've been doing this long enough to where I probably can do it better, all right, than the assistant coach. Eventually, I want my assistant coaches to be able to do it better than me, because I would like to sit back in a perfect setting like this season where I have a coach at every position. When every coach is here on my campus, I don't have to coach a position. So I don't have to run a drill. I can just walk around and make sure everything's going the way it needs to go. I can talk about energy. I can talk about juice. I can talk about a lot of things because I don't have to focus on that. But if I'm in a drill, I'll take the scout team. 1, I want it to run well. 2, I want my coaches to see that none of us are beyond any of that. So yesterday I was coaching the D-line while running the scout crew. Now I've been doing this for 22 years now. I've been coaching for a long time. So I understand what I want, how I want it, how it needs to be done, because I've been both of these. I started my career as that guy because I was a GA in college. So that's really 90% of my job in college was making sure I had that route, or I did that route. So I've done both. Eventually though, I want my coaches to be able to do it, and I want them to understand how to do it, and I want them to understand that it's not a demotion. It's an important part of what we're doing. So it's very important for me as a head coach. Okay, again, as the head coach, it is very important for me to see, for players and coaches to see me in that role, so they understand how important that role is. So now when we're going zone stuff, if we're going to work like a zone kick scheme, I got to get these scout kids to understand what those zone concepts are going to look like. And if he's kicking the backside. Yesterday, very good question from a kid that we don't think about. Had this drawn up on a scout card, and there was a squiggly line going up like that. So the kid on the scout team, a JV player, said, "Coach, what does that squiggly line mean?" That's a good question by that kid. That squiggly line means that there's some type of double team that's possibly going to work up to the next player. But you don't think about that all the time as a coach. When you draw it up with that squiggly line, you think they might already understand that. Okay? So when we're talking about a zone scheme, I have to teach that scout group what we're doing, where we're going, who's going to where, so that these guys can get their work. Then we go to a gap scheme. So let's say we go to like a power gap scheme. I have to get these guys to understand, and I'll tell you the first question usually that comes up a lot at the lower level. So I double that and I draw the squiggly line back there. Kids say, "Coach, what's the squiggly line mean?" That means off the double team you're going back to that backer. Okay, and then we draw this down block here going to the mic, and then we have a kick out and we have a puller. Well, one of the next questions you'll get from a younger kid when I say, "Hey, backside guard's going to pull," you assume that kid knows by the drawing what a pull is, but a lot of times those kids don't. So you got to explain or teach what a pull is. Eventually in your varsity program or later on in your JV program, you might not have to teach that, and that's beautiful because you're spending more time in the drill without having to teach as much to the scout team. Well, when you first do it, JV guys, you got to tell them what a pull is and what a kick-out block is. I need this kid as a fullback to understand that you need to try and kick this out to make his job, which is the wrong arm and spill the play. You got to make his job as tough as possible. I need this down block to declare itself to the Mike linebacker so that that end can block wreck and see that down block. I need to get this kid to understand how to skip pull and get where you belong so we can see how we need to fit that. I need to teach this kid what a hinge of a B gap is. So now we're teaching, and we're teaching the scout team based on the drawing. First of all, look at the drawing. You know how many of these kids, and you go through it all the time, you know how many of these kids will screw up the drawing even when it's drawn for them? So you're not asking them to memorize the play, you're telling them to do what's on the drawing. And they'll still screw it up because as coaches, we take that for granted. You got to teach it. You got to work it. You got to rep it. So you need to do that in your practices so that you can rep this scheme and they can see this scheme. Then you can progress and say, "Hey guys, that's what's called a power scheme with a backside G pull or a backside guard pull. That's what's known as a power scheme. That's what's known as a gap scheme." Then you get up and you say, "Okay, now we're going to draw and work on the counterplay." So now we're going to get up there, and again, it's a defensive period. We're working on how we fit the counterplay, but we're also working on teaching the offense what a counterplay is because we may run counter. So now we get the down block from this side. Now we get the double happening here, squiggling back to there. Coach squiggly line, that means find the linebacker. Now this is pull and kick. This is hinge, and this is pull wrap. So now I'm teaching this sniffer what a wrap is, teaching that guard what a pull kick is, how to enter into the line of scrimmage, get your helmet where it belongs to kick out, so that we can work on the down block squeeze, wrong arm. We're working on all those defensive theories in a defensive period while teaching our scout players things that will not only help us in drill, but things that may help them, because on JV at least, guess what? A lot of these kids may be guys that are playing O-line for you. So a lot of those kids may be guys that are playing O-line for you. So why not teach them in that drill? So what we're getting to is a point where coaching your own players in the period while coaching scout players, both those jobs are very important. While you're coaching scout players, steal every minute you can get to teach them things that they may need to know when they're playing a position that they may actually play. So if you have O-lineman in a drill as a scout player, start stealing some time and repping down blocks and doubles and climbs and exit points on when you're climbing and who's coming off and BU calls or whatever you do in your offense, and your angles and your footwork to pull kick and your angles of a backside tackle or a sniffer pulling and wrapping. Steal time in those drills, not only to teach the kids how to be a scout player and how to run a scheme off a card, but also teaching them football, stealing time in a day to teach them more and more football, because we only have X amount of time in a day to teach all the things in football we want to teach. And as coaches, we always want to move on with the practice plan, because as we do it, as a head coach, when I do our practice plan, I start looking at it, I'm like, our guys, are they going to want to do this run fit period again? Are they going to want to do a half line coverage drill again? Are they going to want to do offensive plays on air? We just did that. Should we be moving on? Should we be installing? Should we be going to the next thing? So as coaches, we always want to kind of move on with what we think, and it may be an idiosyncrasy of the coach or a habit, or we think we got to move on to where we're supposed to be based on things we've done in the past. Well, for me, the pandemic has taught me that we've had extra time to do things that maybe we should move on. Maybe we should go back and keep doing the things we're doing until we can do them 90% effective, or until we can master them, or until we learn how to do a certain drill. So coming out of the pandemic, maybe we should spend more time on skills and drills, teaching kids how to do drills. So when I say, hey guys, we're going to do half line, both teams know, the scout team knows. So when I say half line, what I'm talking about is a half line coverage drill where we are going to have a ball, a QB, a running back, all right, two receivers. Maybe they're two receivers wide. Maybe it's a tight end and a receiver out here. Okay? Doesn't really matter what it is. We're just breaking the formation down in half and we're working on half line drills. So now on defense, we are going to have a linebacker, a down safety, a free safety, and a corner. These guys will be running routes off a scout card. So you got to teach them how to read scout cards. You got to teach them how to be scout players. So that if you want to run this, and this, teach them how to be scout players. You might have that concept in your offense. Teach them how to run plays off of a drawing, because this part is the actual drill that we're working on, the half line coverage, and you're the scout team. But as a coach, you got to be good at coaching that part, so that when I say, eventually what you want to get to is I say, hey guys, we're going to a half line coverage period. You want all your players involved in the drill to know, you want these 4 guys to know what the heck's going on, and you want these 4 guys to know what's going on, so it doesn't take you 6 minutes to get into the drill. If I've got it set up for 15 minutes and it takes me 6 minutes to get into it, I only got 9 minutes to work on coverage. We want to get to a point where we say, hey guys, next period after water break, we're going half line coverage, skills, wideouts, DBs, all right, or DB safeties, corners, safeties, linebackers. Okay, your half line coverage drill. Then you need a scout group, hey, quarterback. I take my quarterback now, who's been doing a better job at it, because he's a younger kid that's now starting for the first time, but he was that scout kid, so he knows how to do that stuff. So I tell our quarterback, hey, you got the scout group, all right? Take the scout book, maybe I'll run the scout team, whatever it is. You got the scout group, run them through those. I need those 8 routes, run them through. I don't care what you run, just run a different route every time, or run a different route concept every time. Because this group is just as important in that group in the end of the day when you want to get things taught and you want them to be efficient. So where do we want to be, and what things kind of drive me nuts as a coach? We've had all this extra time during the pandemic. We've had extra time to teach drills, skills. We've had extra time to continue to work on installs. We haven't jumped ahead just to say we need to be on this page right now because our old install composite says we need to be here. We've had extra time. These things should now be done at a very efficient rate, and we're still not there yet. So we go to a half-line drill, and a half-line drill takes a while to set up. That makes you kind of annoyed as a coach because we've spent a ton of time doing half-line drills. So why can't we get into that half-line drill, okay, and do it efficiently? So today, in our practice plan, we got to add to this, and we got to have 2 half lines going on. So we're going to have a half line over here, that's a passing strength, and then over here, we're going to be working a half line drill versus single side receivers. So over here, on this side, we're going to have a drill that's just got a wide out and a running back. So now, we want to get efficient enough to where we have LBs, safeties, and corners over here, and we have LB, safety, and corners over here. And now this side, let's say we're working 2 read, and this side we're working sky coverage. Well, now within that 15 minutes, the efficiency of the drill, we've got to understand how to get in and out of the drill to give us 15 minutes worth of work on 2 read here and sky here. Then you've got to get efficient enough to where these kids can play both sides, because on our defense, they're going to see both sides. So your practice, how you do things, scout team, the efficiency of the scout team, coaching a scout team, getting kids to understand how to practice is a big part of what you're doing every day. And this pandemic has taught me that in 22 years. It's taught me that even more so than ever, because in the old days, I would have been kind of chomping at the bit to move on with the install and just keep worrying about installing plays and coverages and blitzes and other things. And now I backed off a little bit and said, hey, look, I know this practice plan looks very similar to the one we used last week because I still don't think we're good enough at what we're doing yet. So let's continue to do it. So you've got to be able to get out of it what you want, teach what you want. I'm also getting my point across to young coaches, because I have a bunch of young coaches that have been either first year coaching or with me for the first time. I'm getting my point across to them that, hey, when we do these drills, here's the part you need to know. Because what is every coach, when you go to a drill, every coach just wants to grab their position and get right into the nuts and bolts of their position. Well, a couple things you got to think about. That drill may need to be set up. All right, I'll give you a perfect example. We started out with our, hopefully you can see that, I don't want to jump too far, but that's half line read, half line away. So we started out on defense, we have a pursuit drill that we run. All right, it's a very simple pursuit drill. I put 5 players in front of me, and I put 5 cones on each side, 5 yards apart. So there's cones on each side, 5 yards apart. I stand in front of them right here. I tell them to get their feet moving. On the whistle, they're going to do an up-down. When they pop up off the ground, I'm going to give them a direction. And depending on the direction, they've got a cone that they've got to pursue to. Okay? Nothing fancy, nothing crazy. Probably about the simplest pursuit drill you can do. Some people ask why we do it with 5 guys. Why do we do it this way? I have my own reasoning for it. All right, but the bottom line is that's a pursuit drill. So on the practice plan today, for defense, one of the first periods we're doing is going to be this pursuit drill. Well, if I go to my defensive coaches and say, hey, can you run the pursuit drill? Yeah, coach, we got you, no problem. Well, they're going to start thinking about the angles and the energy and the juice and all those things that are going on. But the first thing you need to set that drill up. So sometimes we take things for granted, like scout players, scout teams, doing drills. Sometimes we take things for granted and we don't understand as coaches there's other things to it. So yeah, you might be able to run a pursuit drill, but can you set it up? So if I'm running around checking kids in and doing proper COVID-19 protocols and checking kids in and making sure, all right, they answer the proper questions and they have their physical and they're clear and all that stuff. And then I'm also doing a wet bulb test on the field that I have to do every 30 minutes. I might not have time to set up the pursuit drill. So how I teach my coaches to understand that, hey guys, we got pursuit, that means not only do you have to run it, but you may have to set it up. That's on me as a head coach. That's where you got to get better as a coach, to delegate things, to teach guys how to run a drill. I got one of my assistants coming up here to help me line the field. I taught him how to line the field last week or 2 weeks ago. All things that during this pandemic I have kind of gone back and said, you know what, I don't do a good enough job as a head coach doing these things. I don't do a good enough job teaching guys and then delegating things to them. I got to do a better job. I've got a full staff now. I'm as happy as I've ever been with my coaching staff. I got to do a better job with them. All those things, coach your players, coach scout players, coach the drill, know how to run the drill, know how to set the drill up so we can be as efficient as possible. Okay, so a lot of you guys are already doing things like this. You're probably doing better than I do. I just wanted to do this video today because I got a chance yesterday to coach JV line, and I had to run a scout group in a run fit period, and I had to go over all the questions. What's a pull? What's a down block? What are all those things? And it made me think, hey, as coaches, we got to start figuring out how to do a better job coaching players and scout players, excuse me. And then as I go through this video in my head, I start thinking about things and saying, okay, we got to do a better job setting drills up, understanding how to set drills up. What do we need to do certain drills? And that's on all of us as head coaches. Okay, so hopefully this video helps you a little bit with coaching scout players, setting up practices, some other things that I got into. Hopefully this video helps you. I appreciate everything you guys do for Play Fast Football. Hopefully you're all getting a chance to play real soon. If you're playing already, God bless you. I wish everybody the best of luck. If you're playing us one game a year, then that's the only time I don't wish you luck. Every other week, I wish everybody the best of luck. As always, you won't play well until you play fast, and I'll see you guys next time.